bridges, bridges in the sky, they are shining in the sun. They are stone and steel and wood and wire, and change two things to one. They are languages and letters, they are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're lovers and all. They are languages and letters, they are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're lovers and all. There are canyons, there are canyons, they are yawning in the night. They are rank and bitter anger, they are all the void light. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and they're so very wide. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and they're so very wide. Let us build a bridge of music, let us cross with a song. Let us span another canyon, let us write another vow. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we are bound today, we will tell them building bridges and we are on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we are bound today, we will tell them building bridges and we are on our way. We will tell them building bridges and we are.
We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. That's our goal, building bridges between Republicans and Democrats and socialists and communists. And we want to make sure all humanity comes together. So here we are, building bridges. All religions come together, just like the Pope says. And it's a good idea. Welcome to Bridges Programming. This is Wednesday World Call In. We're going to have an open forum with some of our emails today, not all of them, but some of them. And this is again Bridges Programming World Call In. It's brought to you by the Human Renewable Energy Measure, which is you don't put money into it. It's just a concept that we want to make sure all human beings have their basic needs met. That's how we judge
basic survival needs.
The basic survival needs for
food, shelter, education.
Education, food, and shelter. Primarily food and shelter, and that can be measured in energy units. That's why we call it an energy measurement. And of course, education is primary to know what you're doing, and that should be wide open to anyone. So we have education, food, and shelter. And that's called the HREM, the Human Renewable Energy Measure. We also sponsor something called Renew the Earth. And we have with us on the program today Susan Comont, and I'm Jeff Beller. And on the other end of the line in New York, we're here in Florida now, is Dennis Carius. Hello, Dennis. How are you?
Good, Jeff. How are you and Susan?
We are busting our chops here, and nobody cares.
Hi, Dennis.
Ever since Ronald
Hi,
Reagan.
Susan, I really care.
I know you do, and I'm sure of that.
So anyway, we're here, and we're going to try to get people to understand, so we call that enlightening them about a human renewable energy measure.
Something that we all know anyway.
Everybody agrees that everybody in the world should have food and shelter. I mean, that's something, and we can now measure that, and that's 1 million energy units of food, 1 million energy units of water. Shelter can be measured depending upon where you are in energy units. We can call the food and we can call it calories or watts. It doesn't matter. It's nature's energy from the sun, and whether it has to be, if we don't get those basic needs met, we'll all die. By the way, I want to thank Bill Staines for letting us use the song Bridges on Bridges Programming. I normally say that in the beginning. This is our last show in Florida for this season. Hopefully we'll be back next year. and do another show starting in the cold times of the year, October, November. And but we'll be back in New York, and we're going to do our next show probably from a place somewhere in a different state. So we'll know that shortly.
Maybe
We have
North Carolina.
we get these emails all week long, and there are arguments and people chatting back and forth about different things. In this case, people talk about this whole deal was a lot of it about Muslims and Islam, and we're trying to explain that if basic needs are met, if food and shelter is met, and education is available for anyone, then you're not going to have the hatred and bigotry and segregations that we're trying to do with people. We need to have humanity come together. And I can tell you a very interesting thing that's for real, very much physical. We live in a very poor part of Florida. It's quite poor. But basically, all needs are met. People, they have their basic food and shelter. They don't have their wants met, but their needs are met. And therefore, there are definite prejudices amongst the groups because of poverty. But basic needs are met, so you have relative calm within the population. Where if you took away the basic needs, people would be shot and people would kill one another. And that's what's happening in other parts of the world, such as Africa, Syria, all around the world, because the basic needs are taken away. So we are suggesting that using a measurement based on physics, all humanity has their basic needs met, and that's the point of these programs. And you don't have to join anything or give us money for this program. We just ask you to please understand all basic needs must be met. And we can measure them in energy units in physics. And you can get rid of minimum wage, you can get rid of welfare. You don't need it if all basic needs are always met for a minimum of 1 hour of your 80 years of life of work a day. You have 80 years of life, so you can base that on science. In some cases, it'll be less. In some cases, it'll be more. So we get people who just want to split hairs and, some people live 1,000 years, some people live 50 years. Close enough for science. 80 years is a good number if people get their basic food and shelter and they're in some kind of health care and some kind of, in today's market, 80 years is a good number for science. So that's what we're talking about. Now, Dennis, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you what you have to say.
Well, this is very interesting, Jeff, because when you mention 80 years, if somebody lives to be 90 or 100 or 110, I mean, they would still continue to get their basic needs met, correct?
No, I think we should get rid of people after they hit 80.
Wow, I hope you're joking about
I am.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to make it clear that there's no limit. Once you turn, let's say, that age.
So, but what that 80 years is, it's a basic form. We're trying to come up with a physical measurement. And just for science, like if I tell you that it's about, let's say, 75 degrees here or 65 degrees here, you would say, well, I know what 75 degrees means, but whatever it's 75 or 78 or 76 or 68, it's still within a range you can understand, right?
And you have to tell me, is it centigrade or, is it?
Well, normally we're dealing in Fahrenheit.
Okay, Fahrenheit, yes.
So you understand that because we all agree that if you talk in centigrade, well, 50 degrees would be reasonably comfortable because 100 degrees is boiling. So we know that because we agree upon that measurement. So we have two measurements for the exact same understanding. We have one in centigrade, which is a much larger scale, and one in Fahrenheit, which is a much smaller scale, almost double the amount in, but it's the same thing. Boiling and freezing. Boiling is 0 in Celsius, and 100 degrees is 0 is freezing, and 32 is freezing, and they're both exactly freezing. And then you have boiling is 100, and the other one's 212. But we understand that hot water is boiling hot water, you get burned, and we understand that whether it's 212 or 110 or 100 or 100. It's an agreement. The same thing holds true with age. Same thing holds true with calories, food, and water. So that's what we're talking about. So do you see, does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does, Jeff.
So it's just an agreement that we have. And an agreement is all we can have as a species. And without a measurable agreement, we can't say what a minimum wage should be. Therefore, we can't say what a tax structure should be. Therefore, we can't say what an individual has rights to, or a corporation has rights to, or no rights to. So we have to be able to measure things to figure out what's fair, and you can't figure out what's fair without a basic measurement. And that's the physics part. And that's why we're having so much trouble understanding even the politics of life. Or we judge a country on how much GDP. Well, today I heard the stocks market went up. Well, what does that mean? It means something to do with an artificial money thing. It has nothing to do with physics or reality. It has to do with the reality of our game, our game of physics, or a game of the economy that has no basic value. Of course, it has value as far as what it can buy you, but the question is, what's the value of what you eat is the calories you need. The money is arbitrary. It has no value. It may buy you a hamburger, which brings a certain amount of calories, but the hamburger never changes the calorie content. But the money changes as far as what it will buy in calories. So we need something to pin that trade number down to a simple thing, and we need to pin it something that can't be manipulated. And that's
Or it's very difficult to manipulate. Or it can be protected by each individual.
Right.
Right now, we can't even protect in the
Individual
United States
rights.
our vote because it's delegated out to.
Because it's another game.
It's a game.
It's another game. It has no
But
it has
if you
no
want to get
value.
to the point where you can protect your vote, you have to first protect your actual existence, your actual survival, and that's what we're saying.
But
That we don't have a route at this point through our economics to protect
watch this.
survival.
To protect your right to vote, that means there's money that controls the political system, which controls the media, which controls the message. So it's all based on the economic system. So you're going to have a dysfunctional economic system because it's controlled by artificial money and artificial things. So you get artificial politicians and artificial ways of running world politics. And that's our problem we're running into. It's all based on artificial boundary lines. They're artificial. They're made not by physics, by man. And man said, okay, this is going to be a different country. Well, it's no difference from your needs, whether you're in Indonesia or the United States, or you're in Canada or the United States, or you're in Mexico or the United States. Your physical needs as a human being is still the exact same. You require 1 million energies of food, 1 million of water, a certain amount of energy units for your shelter. And we all need knowledge, and knowledge comes across the board pretty much to all people if we allow it to.
We're actually asserting that a micro idea like this, and that's using the language of economics, micro ideas that are shared in the larger population, in the largest concept of human population, is a kind of seeding mechanism. We're seeding ideas so that they can become in a macro movement, which is it starts out as a unconscious and then becomes a conscious understanding.
A conscious objective.
And a conscious objective then after that. We're trying to seed solutions. We're not seeding economic profit or seeding businesses for the future. We're trying to seed businesses, solutions in the minds of people that everyone to consider.
Basic needs met, not wants. Wants are what makes us human. All our wants are different. I mean, in most cases, but similar, but different. So our minds are what makes us human. We have different wants, but our needs are exactly the same. No matter where you are, who you are, anywhere in the world, you need a certain amount of food units to survive.
At this point,
Water to survive,
right.
education, as best as you can possibly get for where you want to go with the thinking process you have as an individual, and you'll need shelter. Those are needs. They're not wants. They're needs. Now, you may want 10 wives. You may want 10 husbands. You may want 10 houses. That's wants. They're not needs. They're wants. Some people will say, no, they are needs. No, they're not. They're wants. You can live a life without them. And if all needs are met, you'll basically stop the wars, because no one's going to put their life on the line if their needs are being met. And that's why we have wars. And then we send people out and we use the name of patriotism or communism or socialism or capitalism. We use all these words and we fire up people, and we set up laws, artificial laws, and set up artificial boundaries and set up artificial groups of people to reinforce the economic system. And that's what's happening in our political system today with the popular vote that give people the illusion that they can vote somebody in that'll help them. But the reality is it's not true. The reality is the vote is pre-set up to help the economic system work. That's why they don't want Bernie Sanders in. That's why they don't want Donald Trump in. Not that he would be better or worse, just that he may upset the status quo, and they don't want that. And the reason why I think they don't want that is because it would allow someone else to win the election. That may upset the status quo for the economics. So this is everything is based on the economy. And we need to so we have to look at the problem. The problem is not political. The problem is based on the economy, which has no basis of physics, human measures. And that's where we're coming from with the HREM, the HREM.org. And what you can do to make something happen, what you can do about it, is understand what we're talking about it, start your own group, do anything you can to get this measurement out. Whatever you could do, if you understand what we're saying, use listservs, use your mailing list when you go to church, talk about this with your pastors, see if your pastors can understand what you're saying, and get all basic needs must be met around the world, and that'll stop the wars. And that's what the Pope is saying too. The Pope is saying we have to stop this insanity. And it's great to hear somebody with that stature talking like that. That's what Bernie Sanders is saying. We have to stop killing each other.
And may I continue on this vein just a little longer, then we'll go to the emails, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to make the case that our present economic system is focused most consistently and dominantly on profit motive and profit purpose. And we're saying that a case can be made that this is not a physical purpose. This is not has no significance to each of us and our survival and our lives, to our human survival, to the larger picture of how people live on planet Earth. It is not a purpose. It's a what would you call it? It's
an artificial. It's an artificial goal
that keeps fluctuating and depends on
only
who can
allows
make
the
the
top
most money.
very wealthy people, the
That's
kings.
what capitalism does.
It was set up. We can call it capitalism, but the reality is all these isms was set up for profit way back about 5,000 years ago. And then you had kings, and they ruled with an iron hand to keep the slaves working for them, to keep the kingdoms alive. Now, there's no difference between Queen Elizabeth
at some point,
and a worker.
at some point there was no pushback on the part of the majority of people for whatever reasons. They may have been, you know, too starved out or too sick from plagues or whatever, or wars. They did not push back against this trend of the economics. They didn't say, this is not serving us. You know, they couldn't rise up enough to make their needs known. It's possible now for that kind of concept to resurface, where we redirect our economic system to our actual physical purpose, a physical purpose of satisfying human needs, food, shelter, and their education. And this is for the dignity of everyone, of all humans. And then this will also, you know, it has the side effects, the wonderful side effects of elimination of poverty, and war, and destruction of natural resources for profit motives, and then this, you know, our whole life cycle agreement on this planet will become a very different dynamic. Right now we have a economic system whose purpose is like having a one-winged bird. It just focuses on profit, and a one-winged bird, you know, if it flies at all, is flying in circles. And this is not, and actually probably smaller and smaller ones until it fails to fly at
hits
all.
the ground, right?
So that it's important that our most dominant and our most significant system that we all share on this planet, which is the economic system, reflect what humans really need, and doesn't create stresses throughout the planet that that starve people out, that make refugees, that make war, that you know, that turn us against each other on the basis of religious, racial, social standing purposes. All these things that we know are happening right now, and I'm going to go to the emails that we've been getting recently, and a conversation between a couple of people who wanted us to
talk about what they sent to us.
right.
That was sort of an interesting,
to
some
get
interesting emails. I was wondering if Dennis, doesn't look like I got 6 viewers. You're not on the line. You're not online yet, are you, Dennis?
And I'm going to quote from the emails, and I won't identify the people because they haven't given us permission to use their names. So, but I will take some excerpts from what they said. So anyway, here we go. The original video, YouTube video that was sent to us, we watched it, and it was sent to a large email list. And it essentially, well, you watched it pretty carefully, Jeff, and then responded with, so what do you want to do about this? Kill a race is not a way to go, or we become psychopaths.
But if you try
so
to,
the video itself was making a case
I want
to
to explain this.
isolating.
They're saying they described. I don't know. Think they described it. They're saying they described this in careful that all.
It's historically correct.
And it may be,
correct.
but that's not
But
the point.
history itself is a
The
bit of a
the
fictional.
point is, if all,
and
if the
subjective.
United Kingdom, let me reverse this. They're saying that the Quran, and they're saying that Muslims they're not going to be happy until we change the whole thing over to being Muslims. Now, I personally believe that it's all about the economy, but that's my personal belief. Now, I want to reverse this. If the kings themselves, the people who control the world, the 1%ers, want to control the world, which I think they are, to make sure they stay in
Well, they
king,
want the status quo.
and they
to
stay
remain.
kings, to make sure they have all the people working for them. That's pretty much the same thing as what the Quran is saying, but and the economic system is in
But
fact,
you can't target it
the
because you
economic
can't get them
system-
all in one
the
place. at one
economic
time.
system is still a belief system. The system we have now has no real value other than you have to believe in gold, silver, precious metals, or the dollar. And a few small, 1% of the population controls that.
And it's easy to get people to get behind that because right now, this is the cash in hand that gets what you want.
Money rules.
Right,
Gold
and
rules.
what was that we heard this morning about being financially educated?
Financially educated. That's another stupid thing.
I mean,
If you have no money, how can you be
How-
financially educated?
right. It's people should educate themselves
To be
about.
to know how much money they should have. Well, if you don't have the money, what the hell's the
You don't
difference?
have a job that can pay for what
You can be
are,
financially educated,
trying to,
know everything about it,
do.
finances, but not being able to have the money because people are trying to make money with money, and that's not physically possible. Eventually, someone's got to do the work. Someone's got to grow the food. Someone's got to clean out the septic or the sewer system. Someone's got to provide the water, and they should be as well off as the person who needs that work done or can afford to pay them. They should not have to be in slavery. That's the point of all this.
Now, almost the whole world population is in a form of slavery.
Slavery, exactly, because of the economic system.
And
So what happens when you have people who say we got to break that, they blame them and say, well, they're the
we're
Muslims.
just in a different comfort levels of slavery.
And they want to control the world, so they have a better quality of life. Well, the quality of life could easily be obtained if we had a measurement to find out what the basic quality of life should be.
Okay, let's go back to to the emails. Now, this is a response to what you said, and it says, and this is the individual who sent the original email. Nothing you or I think or do will influence the historic outcome. Being well informed is also an exercise in futility, but something somewhat engaging and keeps the brain cells firing. I am an isolationist in this case, a temporary solution at best. Historically, the most effective way, but inhumane way, to destroy a culture has always been war, and will likely to continue to be due to man's inherent propensity to adhere to religious beliefs. Now, he's making the case that the religious beliefs themselves are dividing us against each other, and that war will be the result, and that you need to isolate people of another
And if you
religion
isolate them,
whom
there's
you
going to
have
continue
determined
to
or
perpetuate the wars.
whom you have decided arbitrarily or whatever are the source of a possible conflict coming. So then you responded again, if we change the way we value our economy, we would change the world view. Most likely wars would stop. And then we go back to what we've been trying to describe throughout the beginning of this program, that the first thing that economics, and that is our overreaching belief system at this point in our existence as a human race, as a human species, is our economics. It's what we all believe in worldwide. And it's
How much
becoming
money
more
can
and
you
more of a
How good the GDP is,
homogeneous economic system. That it used to be there were some countries that were, kind of on the fringes and outside the influence of capitalism and what they call the free market, which we know is not free. It is definitely controlled, mightily by the corporations that are functioning the most efficiently right now. But it's spreading more and more. There's the transatlantic trade thing that our president just went over to promote in Europe.
That's
and
another
this
very bad
is a
thing.
way of exporting our more lax policies about various
So you can
restrictions
poison the soil, poison the air.
into Europe,
and
and they
poison the
know
water.
it, and they're resisting it. But right away already, the European populations are becoming as powerless as we are here in the United States as far as influencing our governments, because our governments are taking their marching orders from the economics.
Right.
And if they are not even in control of well, I mean, I was just following orders, was the big excuse back in World War II. So
That's all the wars.
when do the leaders say, well, I'm not going to follow these orders because I know they're inhumane? But that's something we can look forward to, maybe.
Now the response
now the
to
response to now here's another voice coming in, because we forwarded the video to a friend of ours, and he says, nothing is new in this video for me. I know a bunch of it, and I'm aware that lots of Muslims interpret literally the Quran, as many Christians do and other people of faith. You name it, from Hinduism to Buddhism. Bunch of examples from all religions. I think the correct answer is, suppose it is true what the video says. What does the West, what does it do? Kill and bomb all Muslims? I mean, we know that he would not suggest that from the tone of this email, and that it's forcing people to think in terms of something that is unconscionable and is genocide. So when you get to that point that you're going in the wrong direction. Okay, so we got another one here. So then he's also responding directly to the first person who sent the video out. And this is the same individual I just quoted from. Thank you for the forward message. Yes, I'm aware of Japanese law toward Islam. Now, this was another video that the original sender sent around, and it asserts that in Japan, they won't even allow anyone of the Muslim religion to become a citizen. And this has been their policy. And so this other individual responds, yes, I'm aware of Japanese law toward Islam, but also it applies to Black Africans. I have 2 sisters-in-law married to my 2 youngest brothers in Canada. I know so much about Japanese, and the young generation rebel against these, though. In fact, young Japanese flock to Arab countries to protest for some of this anti-Muslim behaviors. I thought Trump got this from them and may use this to some points in future as an argument. This cannot work in the USA. Sorry for him. So what he's saying that there is a movement in Japan among young Japanese that they feel that this is, scapegoating and not what they want their country to project, this kind of prejudice toward Islam, and that the Japanese attitude is, he thinks Trump got his cue from that, and he's trying to then work it for his campaign. And our email here, the individual asserts this cannot work in the USA. I hope he's right. Okay, now here's the response of the original sender. I don't understand how young Japanese flocking to Arab countries as a protest will help resolve the perceived problem. They will not likely be welcome there unless they convert to Islam. Loyalty to one's clan or tribe, even as evolved into loyalty for one's culture or government, is atavistic behavior connected to survival. The cultural veneer acquired as a result of one's early life surroundings can be influential in determining this behavior to a large degree, but may also be worn thin or altered by further events as time passes. However, with Islam, the cultural veneer is so implanted that no significant further change seems likely. I see isolation as the most practical and humane solution for the present time. Some cultures evolve much more quickly than others, and I believe that trying to influence this is most disruptive and counterproductive. It also causes wars. Okay, now we return to the other individual in this conversation. Thank you for your thoughts. Also, I saw a video about Islam you forwarded. I think the correct rational question to ask ourselves is, assuming that it is true what the video says and the interpretation, should then the Western world kill and bomb all Muslims, or, like Trump puts it, don't allow them to enter the USA? The Quran was written long before both industrial and information revolutions. Do you really believe what the Bible and Quran say hold much water in today's world? Yes, there are a few guys out there still believing it and using it to discriminate against others. I am Black African. I know for the fact how missionaries came and used the verses in the Bible to discriminate against Black Africans. Apartheid policies in South Africa were deeply rooted from the scriptures, Bible. Can we blame all of this stuff on all Christians? And many, many question marks. Saudi Arabia and other jihadists are the only one benefiting from this so-called Islam ideology and Sharia laws. As for Japanese, I lived and worked in Yemen. I met many Japanese women coming in Arab countries to learn Arabic and first-hand information about their religion. Young generation are well connected worldwide, and all other stuff aimed to politicize the world. By the way, I'm not a Muslim. I am a pastor and a Quaker. This is his response. So, I mean, I would like to say that I feel that even though it's a horrible tragedy, the refugee crisis of Syria right now,
and Rwanda,
and South Africa, and Northern Africa,
and Germany,
the people feeling forced to migrate or are becoming refugees from bombing and torture and murder. These populations are now meeting other populations with different kinds of upbringings, different kinds of belief systems, and there's going to be a meeting and at first a lot of difficulties communicating, because right away you've got a language barrier that has to be overcome. But slowly, over generations, there's going to be a blending and a change will come to both parties. And it isn't, Islam is not any less able to make those changes than any other religion. And there will always be fanatics in all religions, as this previous email suggested. And what I want to say is that, as he was saying too in the email, these documents, the parts of these documents that fanatics are grasping onto to make a case for the way they're behaving and the oppression that they're creating, were written so many thousands of years ago, and the context of the way people live now is changing the way that even these documents are being interpreted. And we know that with the New Testaments and the this and the that. And Islam is the same way. It changes with the passage of time, with the meetings of different cultures with each other. And now we're having a massive meeting of cultures with each other and religions with each other in Europe. And they have not had this kind of encounter for a very long time. If ever. They've been very pristine in their, I'm French, I'm German, I'm this, I'm that. And their identities are very, very distinct unto their countries.
They all are the same people.
But they're now being challenged to have some kind of realization of the type that you're just saying. that they're no different than the people that are being forced out of their countries, and the religions are not any different. They're all based on fairness and elimination of poverty, basic things like that. That's why Muhammad went out there and left his rich upbringing, and this was the story about him. He went and became a beggar so that he could understand why there was poverty in the world. That's the beginnings of that. That's the beginnings of the Christian, the beginnings of almost every religion you can think of, is the horror that was in the face of how people were living or trying to live in the face of prosperity that could have been shared, and is still not being shared. And we got to learn this lesson.
So basic, not shared, so it's
well,
equal, but shared so just the basic needs are met. Then you allow
You need
your
a
wants
starting
to come
point.
in. Right, you need a basic needs met. Dennis, you're awful quiet there. Did you were able to get online? I don't see you on here.
Well, that's why Dennis is quiet, because he's looking to find the live show so I can tune in to this show live.
And I just want to finish with these two more emails of
Go
this
ahead.
conversation, because I think it was very well done between the two individuals, and very civil, and I thought it expanded on some interesting points. And so this is the original emailer, the one who sent the YouTube video. I am more of a coat holder and devil's advocate in forwarding things to stir up people. With world population increasing at an exponential rate, I think the problems may be beyond reckoning at this point, considering the diversity of opinions existing on nearly every subject. I feel we may be beyond a peaceful resolution. History tells us that wars have been the resolution method of choice or necessity in the past. The atavistic behavior developed for survival during the evolution of mankind is not likely to be easily extinguished by education or logic. And for every person who is able to move beyond this ingrained behavior, there are 100 or more who cannot or will not do so. If I were to speculate on the most important issue to address almost every present day problem, I would say working toward reducing world population dramatically would be the most important. And the response to this from the other individual is, I hear you well, thank you for sharing, and I agree, quote, the diversity of opinions existing on nearly every subject is beyond a peaceful resolution, unquote. The powerful will always win, but perhaps not anymore, given our information age. And this individual is asserting that education and an informed population is our buffer against the possibility of more war. We need to entertain more ideas, more interaction with peoples that we don't think we can communicate with. Yes, we have to figure out how to become comfortable with reaching out to people that we never thought we would be comfortable communicating with. And then we will find maybe surprising to ourselves or to, you never know, maybe we knew that we have more in common than we don't have in common. And the outcry in Europe right now, and the desire to turn back the refugee flow and or harness it into concentration camps. We know we did that here in the United States with the Japanese population, and psychologically with the German population after World War II. We know what this is about. We have done it here, and we've been, but never to the extent so far that we did after World War II with the Japanese populations, and we knew that was wrong. We are now educated, and we know that we've made these mistakes. Europe has not, as a group of countries, making decisions, not being forced into some horrible collective genocide by a psychopath in the form of Hitler, making concentration camps. They are on the verge of making concentration camps. They need to step back and assess why they're so fearful of these populations coming into their countries. They have traditions of value that they can propose to that are not going to disappear because other traditions are coming in. There's going to be an unforeseen blending that is not a bad thing. It's always a very difficult thing and a very maybe frightening in some respects, because it changes lives dramatically, and that's the change that
People are
is
afraid of
real, not the change that politicians tell us about, change you can believe in, and all these slogans that you're going to hear more and more of as we move through our presidential elections here. These are the changes that are actually real and actually do take us to another level of existence as a human species and cooperation as a human species. But you can't start cooperating and learning from each other until you
have an open mind.
Right. And Europe has not had to have, none of the European nations has had to have much of an open mind about their countries, except maybe how we're going to trade and who's going to get rich in each country, or richer. And so making a case now to the United States that we need to be the ones that come and save them from their discomfort with different people coming into their countries than they've ever had to deal with before is a way of making us the fall guy for their their circumstance, and when they could be taking that and sharing all these refugees equally among all the European Union,
And so should we.
and integrating them.
But so should
and
we.
Canada is doing it, and we can do it, but we'll all do it at the same percentage.
And that
And
wouldn't
we'll-
even have to
and
be.
that is a
But there's
solution.
another problem here. That wouldn't even have to be if, in fact, there wasn't a problem in Syria.
Right, and the problem will not be resolved by military intervention by the United
This
States.
is not the problem. Is the initial problem is because of the economic system in Syria,
But
which drives people from their home.
But right
which
now there
creates
is an
another
emergency,
right? Because
and the emergency needs to be dealt with in a humane way, putting people in a safe place with their families and their children, so that the children can then be educated and informed about other
with their
possibilities.
basic
They won't be
needs
just
met.
getting
Education, food, and shelter met where they are. And that's how we should be judging a country. And we should be not separating the countries as far as different from us, but they're part of the same planet. They're part of the same globe. What they do there affects us somewhere else. What we do there economically affects someone somewhere else. So the economics must be fixed worldwide.
any nation, and it's just to take a cue from Pope Francis, any nation who has significant enough GDP to take in refugees should be taking them in. There should be a
And then
fair
stop the
percentage.
refugee problem.
Well, then once you have taken actually from the aggressors in Syria, one of their bargaining points, and one of their ways that they tried to lure military intervention from other countries like the United States and Europe, is by torturing people in Syria and making them leave. Oh, we got to go in there and stop that. We got to stop them from killing people there. Well, we allow and encourage people to leave. They don't have those people to abuse anymore. And we settle them so that they can, I mean, truly, taking the population of Syria, even if the whole population leaves and is reintegrated into Europe and Canada and the United States and South America, you have taken away the possibility of these people who are being aggressors and insane psychopaths of taking over that. All you've got left there then is the hierarchy of the king or the monarch,
and
they can't run it without the people. And so, you know, the more you allow the refugees to leave, the more you ignore the
basic symptoms.
Right. You know,
So see, what we're saying is that the economic
the
system,
humane thing, you got to take your cue from what Pope Francis
the economic system
set the
created,
example for.
the economic system, dysfunctional economic system created the problem, which created the refugees, which creates more problems.
So when we hear one of our candidates here in the
Right.
United States trying to stop refugees from coming, oh, we got to vet them more, vet. This is a way of saying that you're going to make it impossible for families to enter from Syria.
But you're not
to the
stopping
United
the problem.
States.
You're still killing
And
people.
it's just a nicety language for no, we're not letting any Syrian. This is unconscionable. This is not United States this is not the United States that I recognize as representing me as a U.S. citizen,
As a human being.
as a human being. We know how to immigrate. We know how to receive immigrants. We are all immigrants here. Even Donald Trump is an immigrant from Germany. I mean, you know, what would this is amazing to me that people forget where they came from and the struggles that their ancestors went through.
Because of the
and nobody else can
but they're
come in
all
now.
economic struggles. Dennis, I noticed you didn't get online this trip. I thought you might have been able to do that, but I'm sorry you didn't. But you can watch the programming after we're off the air. It'll be here. If you want to do something about this, if you feel as though, okay, you guys have mentioned all the problems, what's your solution? It's real simple. Catching cold. It's real simple. The simple thing is, tell your friends about the Human Renewable Energy Measure.
May I make a statement? I know you're losing your voice, and I'm going to speak to the same thing here. And I have we got another, what, 10 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes? My watch is always off. We're talking about scapegoating. We're talking about, Jeff and I are always, not surprised, but, very saddened that the same topics come up every presidential cycle. That the kind of topics that can never have a resolution of agreement, abortion, gay rights, what's the other one? I can't even think of it now.
They recycle these
the
same
same things
just like they do on Halloween and Christmas and Thanksgiving.
never allow people to discuss the issues that really are affecting their lives and let the candidates actually carry some of these issues into office. Bernie Sanders is trying to speak to these things.
And so is the Pope.
And in his way, Trump is using it just like a terrorist. He's using the issues that he knows people are interested in to his own benefit, and misdirecting them so that people will become more isolationist and more xenophobic and more seeking of scapegoats. So what part does this kind of misdirection and distraction play in shaping or slowing human agreement on our obvious common realities? I mean, we have to consider, what does our free time mean to us? What does our lifetime mean to us? What does work mean? how much of your lifetime should you work to
make a living.
Human energy, we're asserting that human energy, which is our life, which is our lifetime, our physical life, cannot be converted to money, should not be converted to money. Money values fluctuate, but human survival needs do not. These are a constant. And if you're converting our lifetime and our work time just to money, throughout anyone's life, there's going to be a time when you can't meet your needs unless you're born with a subsistence or whatever. There is a base constant for human needs. These needs are not accomplished if they are linked to fluctuating money values. This kind of thing, these fluctuating money values, creates a situation where people actually cannot afford to live. And there are plenty of people in that position who are living from one paycheck to another, or paycheck.
Most people
to
are living
another.
like that. And I can't stand to listen to NPR when they say, well, you just got to be educated about money. That's insanity. Because if you don't have it, you don't have it. There's no education for it. You don't have it. I spoke to someone on the phone today. We just don't have it. I'm working 3 jobs. I don't have what I want. I have my needs, some of them, but I'm working 3 jobs to make them happen.
But, okay. And so you're describing desperation, which sets in, and various coping strategies arise, like people who will lie to you, people who will steal from you, people who will kill to survive. And these are pushing populations into desperation, the worst of which is war, displacement of populations. The economics that we're participating in today is like a religion. It's based on faith. We can do better than that. We can base our economics on real physical human needs.
Well, that's all we got for today. Dennis, you gonna wrap up or what?
No, I want to thank you and Susan. You did a great job.
Well, thank you, Dennis. We'll see you again on Sunday on the front stoop. Hopefully, if we can get there on time. Go back.
Excellent.
We'll see you then. Bye now.
See you then. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye now. And stand by for next week. And talk to your friends about the HRAM.org. If you can get that to happen, you've participated. That's how we make the change.
And suddenly the price of oil goes up. Your neighbor's out of work because they closed the factory. You try to stretch your paycheck, but it's never quite enough for energy. Energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. Fossil fuel affects our lives like ripples on a lake. Cars and farms and factories and trucks. Supplies go down, our prices soar, our futures are at stake. And when it's gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of luck. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news of energy. Energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.